Hello everyone, Ron and David here, coming to you from our website astrologynewsreport.com.
Now we look at the upcoming planetary patterns and predictions, what's in store in the heavens for February 2nd to February 9th and beyond.
On Tuesday, February 4th, Mars enters Libra. Mars now joins Saturn and Rahu, which have already been transiting in Libra for over a year.
This makes for a total of 3 natural malefic planets, all in the same sign, which is not a good thing. It creates a problematic imbalance in one part of the zodiac.
Another issue is that Mars and Libra are sort of incompatible with each other. Libra is the sign of balance and harmony, and Mars is the planet of aggression and attack. Mars joining forces with Rahu amplifies the potential for Mars to give malefic effects. Both are rather forceful significators.
Quite true. Last month in our January 12th show, we went through the zodiac and described what sort of effects this combination would have for the 12 different rising signs. Now we will give a few specific examples.
All right, so first off, let's take a look at the effects and predictions for the USA. In the USA chart, the sign Libra is the sign in the 11th house. This is the house that relates to Congress.
3 malefics, including combative Mars, affecting the Congress of the United States of America? This doesn't sound like a recipe for calm, reasoned, civil discussion of national problems. How long does this go on for, Ron?
Yeah, well, Mars is going to be in Libra until March 24th, so it won't help that Mercury will be retrograde also for the next 3 weeks, which, as we know, just makes rational communication that much harder, thereby creating an atmosphere where misunderstandings are even more likely.
I took a look at President Obama's chart. Since he is a Capricorn rising, the Mars-Rahu Saturn combo will be transiting his 10th house of public actions.
Yeah, well, when there are 3 malefics simultaneously translating in your 10th house, it means that your actions will tend to be more on the low end of the scale. In other words, ill-advised, controversial, or even notorious.
So you think the president will become even more unpopular during the coming months?
Yeah, likely, or at best, he'll be more controversial. You have to imagine that he is sick and tired of being blocked and stymied by the Republicans, some of whom have made it their mission in life to see to it that America's first presidency with a black man in office will be viewed by history as a failure.
Yes, that has been documented. And in my opinion, he has waited too long to fight back, which is a trait of his rising nakshatra Dhanishta. And now it sounds like, astrologically speaking, fighting back is not such good timing.
True that, David. We know that Mr. Obama is not so much a fighter anyway, so this planetary pattern is going to really put him to the test.
Oh boy.
Anyway, on Thursday, February 6th, Mercury begins its first retrograde period of 2014, starting out at 9 degrees Aquarius. The planet of communications, rational thought, equipment, daily operations, and business transactions will appear to be going backwards in the zodiac for the next 3 weeks until February 28th.
And this Mercury retrograde period promises to be a bit unusual because Mercury will be exactly conjunct Neptune.
Like we talked about last week, the combination of Mercury, the planet of ideas, combined with Neptune, the planet of idealism, in the humanitarian sign Aquarius, will bring more wishful thinking and calls for doing something for the downtrodden.
But other than that, since Mercury going backwards is generally less rational than usual, when it's combined with the planet of illusions, clear objective thinking will really be hard to come by. The planet of communications combined with the planet of illusion equals the phantasmagorical.
Well, that's right. And then there's the signification of Mercury being the planet of the media. So we can expect the talking heads to get even more strident and irrational as they bloviate from their soapboxes.
Oh, I love that word, bloviate. So why don't we give folks tuning in a heads up of what's to expect in their own charts.
Yeah. All right. Let's go through the rising signs one at a time and see what part of life gets affected by the retrograde Mercury Neptune in Aquarius energy pattern for each case.
And just a reminder, folks, this is Vedic astrology, so what follows is based on your rising sign and the sidereal zodiac, not the sun signs of Western astrology's tropical zodiac. So, starting off with Aries rising, the Mercury-Neptune situation will affect the 11th house, the house of friends, associates, and group activities. Therefore, be careful of misunderstandings and miscommunication in those sorts of relationships. And if you have any, this includes your elder siblings.
All right. Next, we go to Taurus rising. This puts the conjunction in the 10th house of career, business, and relations with superiors. Your professional activities are more likely to be misunderstood by others. You can make a wrong decision, and you may even come under suspicion from your boss.
For Gemini rising, the shift of focus moves to the 9th house of higher studies, the teacher, your father, as well as beliefs and morality. The potential is for misunderstanding with your father or guru, or confusion with studies. Guard against false views of reality. What is truth? What is falsity? Don't jump to conclusions.
And for Cancer rising, Mercury goes retrograde while conjunct Neptune in the most occult house, the 8th house, a house closely connected with the metaphysical. But Neptune signifies fantasy and illusion. Mercury retrograde can be irrational as well, so be careful not to be misled by mental masturbation. On the mundane side of things, the 8th house is financial arrangements with others. When you have the planet of illusion, plus the backwards thinking of retrograde Mercury, you have to watch for mistakes or outright deception regarding other people's money.
For Leos, Mercury-Neptune winds up in the 7th house of one-on-one relationships. So naturally, this is not helpful for clear communications with your significant other and problematic for business partners and clients.
Virgos have this conjunction happening in their 6th house of enemies, health, debts, and employment. There could be unrealistic schemes around problem solving. Virgo tends to do too much, so be careful about being taken advantage of by coworkers. Watch out for health issues being incorrectly diagnosed.
For Libras, the house of love and romance is affected. A misunderstanding with a lover is likely, perhaps due to too much idealism. Since the 5th house is also your children, if you have any activities they engage in, based on flights of fancy, could well get your attention. Or perhaps you have no kids and you're an artist trying to get a creative project to coalesce. In that case, this time may actually work well for you.
Okay, for Scorpio rising people, retrograde Mercury joins Neptune in your 4th house of deep-seated feelings, mother, and domestic life. Watch out for misunderstandings on the home front with your roommate or with your mother.
For Sagittarius, the retrograde Mercury-Neptune conjunction occurs in the 3rd house of desires, efforts, and close relationships. Misunderstandings with a sibling or a neighbor is a high probability. Since the 3rd house has to do with everyday activities, this combination is likely to create problems in your daily routines. Careful of what you put down in emails, as the 3rd house is specifically written communications.
Yeah, that would be true for almost everybody. Anyway, next up we have Capricorn. Capricorns will have retrograde Mercury conjunct Neptune in their 2nd house of speech, personal finances, and family. Mercury itself is communication, so this position needs to be monitored carefully. A lack of realism in the finances department is another issue. Since the 2nd house is the nuclear family, miscommunication with family members is likely.
And as usual, we always come around to the sign where it gets personal, the 1st house of self. This time it's Aquarius, the sign very much associated with humanitarianism, social reform, feelings for the downtrodden. Neptune is the utopian planet, and Mercury retrograde is not rational. This mixture is likely to have you running around trying to save others. under the mistaken impression that it is your mission to do so. It's a setup for being taken advantage by someone.
And last but not least, the sign which is the 12th house in the natural zodiac, Pisces, ends up having this combination of Mercury and Neptune in the 12th house of the chart. The planet of dreams, Neptune, is in the house of dreams, with the planet of rational thought, which itself was now backwards. Great for intuition, but that can also morph into paranoia, illusions, and delusion. The 12th house is also humanitarian acts and generosity. Just be careful that you bestow your generosity on someone who is worth the effort.
So that will do it for a quick tour of the effects of retrograde Mercury conjunct Neptune in your personal charts. Ron, what about the Venus-Jupiter-Pluto combination? We've been seeing some interesting manifestations of that energy pattern over the past week. Now that Venus is no longer retrograde, does that planetary setup become less of a problem?
Well, yes, the planet of value, compromise, agreement, finance, sociability, and so on is now back to normal motion, but it takes over a week for Venus to get back up to normal forward speed, so some of that retrograde energy is still hanging around for at least this coming week, and Venus is still within a couple of degrees of conjunction with Pluto, and still directly opposed by the planet of morals and ethics, Jupiter.
So we can still have more of the moral dilemma type events like the Chris Christie scandal, or the question of how far the Russians will go in sacrificing personal freedoms in the pursuit of securing the games from terrorist threats.
Yes, moral dilemma indeed. We'll watch for more of that in the coming weeks.
Thanks for visiting astrologynewsreport.com. Now on to segment 3 of this week's show.